Hey there, folks. Howdy, Steve here. Just out for a little drive. Just got back and thought of something that I wanted to share today because, as you know, as you may know, if you've watched another one of my videos recently, I am writing again. I've been hunkered down in a cave pretty much for a couple of weeks here to get the bulk of a book out of my head and out of my notes. As you know, I completed a walk 8,000 kilometers for freedom in 2016, and I've taken about 50 pages of notes, pulled out ideas, and began to write. And it's pretty much a chronology, but it's a chronology of what I'm seeing in the outer world and the things I come across, the people I come across, and so on, but also my inner thoughts, which pop up. Sort of, they almost look out of place at times, but nevertheless, they're happening in real time then. So I go back in and I relive the situation and I comment on those thoughts. Where I'm at right now, I'm getting close to the end of the walk. I'm actually on the island of Newfoundland and right near Stephenville, actually, ironically. There was a thought that came to me about long hair and rich guys. Where did that come from? I don't know. But it came to me. Long hair and rich guys. But it dawned on me, there's a similarity there. And there's actually some historical evidence to it in terms of how it's all tied into freedom, I believe. Because after all, the walk was themed Freedom Walk. This was the dedication to the walk was all about freedom because I consider myself quite involved in freedom activism in some ways to try to enlighten myself and others as much as I can. Now, this long-haired thing, it was interesting because if I look back at history and old stories, it's often the people who have this great power of some sort that have long hair. I think historically of a character like Jesus. Now, who knows what he actually looked like, but the pictures of him he usually has, fairly good, good bunch of hair. He's not balding or anything, right? Or it's not cut off. And there's a story in the Bible too about the mighty Samson, right? The strength of his hair. And then I want to throw in there, as I threw it in the book, there's also Fabio, fabuloso hair, right? But, jokes aside, what we see in those characters is some sort of power, right? And it's interesting, the story of Samson is when his hair is cut off, he no longer has power. And I'm wondering if this cutting of hair is unnatural. It's more of a beautification or something like that. But I don't know. Because on the flip side of it, if you look at what they do to military men, not military women, because they're not in the same military, obviously, but military men is they shave their heads. It's like I went to the military and they shaved my head, the first thing they did. And that's often what they used to do to slaves as well, was shave their head. They take away their masculinity and they become somebody who is somebody else's property. A military man is basically somebody else's property. You sign away your life to somebody or something, right? Take people like Jesus and Samson. I mean, they were their own guys, right? Nobody owned them aside among other human beings by the look of it. I don't know the whole story, but this is how it would appear. So they grew it out. And if you look at the countercultures very often throughout the ages, the hippies and whatnot, these guys, they grew their hair out because they were not complying. If you look at a rock and roller, I mean, lifestyles aside, because some of those guys had wretched lifestyles, but they're living their life in some cases, as compared to somebody who is tied, collared, and cuffed in a business suit, right? They have it all trimmed down and everything's cleaned up. Is that a resemblance of them not really being themselves, right? Because why is it they're all collared and cuffed? Did they just come up with that, or did they learn it? And I'm suspicious that they learned it as an approach to beautification or to acceptance, cultural acceptance or whatever. So they went into that and they lost a part of themselves. And in losing part of themselves, they lost part of their freedom. So I think symbolically, the long hair is a symbology of oneself, closer to oneself. And closer to oneself, I would think, is freedom. The other thing that I see, if you look at the two, between the two of hair and money, now bringing in money, if money is a measure of success, or if it's a measure of power, let's say, it's a measure of stored energy, stored power energy, for example. Well, it takes a while, barring lotteries, right? But then again, people can get hair, Staples or whatever. They can get hair from one day to the next. But the real thing, and I'm going to say the real thing in terms of power or money, is not just the currency. It's what's behind it. It's your energy, right? You can give somebody a winning lottery ticket, and very often they'll be broke and even worse off in a year or two because their set point wasn't there, right? So they go back to where the set point was, like a thermostat in a room. You open it up, it's set at 30 degrees. You open it up and it's minus 30. It'll get cold, but then you close the door, it'll come back to where it was because that's where the set point is. But if somebody wins a lottery, their mental set point is not there. So they're going to regress to the mean, which is where their mind is, right? So that's what I'm going to talk about in terms of the money. So if somebody has a lot of money, of even currency, they can lose it all with a stroke of a pen in a moment. Same with if they have long hair, a couple snips, that hair is gone. Both will come back in time, but not necessarily right away. It takes a while, right? So the rich guy can go to having no money in a matter of minutes. He can just, here you go, here you go, here you go. A couple signatures. Long-haired guy can cut his hair off. But the guy who doesn't have the money, genuinely, or doesn't have the long hair, that takes some time. That takes some growing time. And growth, I'm going to say, is what leads to greater freedom and greater strength. So I think it's symbolic. Money is kind of the outward symbolic, the overt, what everybody looks for in the world, right? They see it as overtly powerful. I get a hold of some money in there. I got it. But the long hair, in terms of an occult message, is rather symbolic. It's kind of symbolic in a way, as it's maybe the beard and the long hair is symbolic of masculinity, which is the power center within humanity, I would say. The strength and power center within humanity in terms of the outward force, which also creates freedom. Men are the ones who make war but make peace as well, right? Typically, the masculine side. So it's whatever the energy is directed at. So I just thought that was interesting. I know it's a little bit of a strange conversation, but these are the kind of conversations I had with myself. I mean, who else was I going to talk to, right? As I'm walking along, they would come to me, and it happened to be in a situation of some pretty heavy rain when this was coming on a lot of the time. So the book will be out in a couple of months, I think. It's not for the faint of heart at all. It's going to be rather strange probably for some people to read. And it is raw, because this is where I was coming from. I said, I'm going to lay it out as I see it. And it was over 6 months of aloneness, mostly, in a lot of it wilderness, waking up with snorting animals beside my tent and so on in the middle of the night. So it was a very interesting self-exploration. But this is why a lot of these things came to me. They sound a little strange, but I mean, if you try going out into the wilderness in the middle of nowhere for that long, yeah, you get confronted with a lot of things. So just wanted to share that thought, a little teaser for the book. Some thoughts on money and long hair. Steve, you're getting great chatting. Talk again soon. Bye for now.